Hello and welcome back to Red Pen of Destiny. Here for the final episode of our coverage of Two of These People Are Lying by the technical difficulties found on the Matt and Tom YouTube channel. I call it the final episode, though I will do a short recap, which will come out about an hour after this episode. But as usual, there will be spoilers, and this week we are covering Season 3, Episode 3, the final episode so far. Though, as you can see, it came out on March 12th of this year, so it will be coming out. There will be a fourth season, presumably, later this year. Anyway, this episode is called Down a Bit from Tromsø, which is actually a key component of the episode. We'll get to that later, though. So we have two positives right off the bat. Gary's intro and Chris's intro. So everybody's gotten at least 1+ for intro at this point, except for Tom. Anyway, first round is Lule Sami. Fun thing about this is they picked something from Sweden, something from Finland, and something from Norway. The trinity of northern Scandinavian countries. Yeah. So the first thing was a Swedish river. The second thing was a Finnish Eurovision entry. Now, if you don't know what Eurovision is, it's a European song contest, generally with folksy sort of music that defines the country. I'm not a big fan of it because I think some European countries are known for something different than people who like traditional music do. Think Swedish death metal. Norwegian black metal, German power metal. These are countries that have invented a genre, and yet that it's not considered part of their culture. Right. Okay. Anyway, so our first little positive we had here was in describing the Swedish river, they ended up focusing on the word discharge, as you do. And then at some point, because Tom has a checkered past with being confused about things from Scandinavian countries, there were some jokes about meatballs and airports, which if you've seen I believe it was the very first episode, actually. I can just check in my notes, actually, where they had two things from Finland. So it became, it was the very first ever episode, where he didn't believe that meatballs on a stick could be a thing. He also forgot the Finnish word for airport, even though he's been to Finland. So, I believe this is the second time it's been mentioned. And then the third positive, which is an interesting one. So, it turned out Chris, who'd picked the river, was actually reading, or had actually written down the title of the first hyperlink, which he thought it was a translation, but was actually the name of a language. A language which is in exactly the same place that Matt said his tribe was. And I quote, down a bit from Tromsø. Note the title. So he got the geography right. He got the name almost right. It was ridiculously close. So he just made stuff up, and somehow he had the right geographic area and the right things. That was interesting. What's the next one? Oh, that brings us to the end of that round, to the second round, which is Hurricane. Surprisingly, nobody said it was a convention. That's what I would have. Like, it's a convention for Hercules fans? That was what my first thought was, but no. They suggested a hurricane condition. Con. Okay, fair. Electronics manufacturer. With an interesting story about how it was supposed to be Hercom, but it got misspelled to Hercon, and they stuck with it. And then a Mexican wrestler from Wiggum. That one was interesting. It essentially boils down to there being a small, unknown luchador ring in the northern United Kingdom. Yeah, it was ridiculous. But it led to the first positive from this round, which was a little bit about So Tom said he knew people who run a wrestling ring in London, and they're like, so Tom has a wrestling ring in London. It's kind of funny. And then a random positive, not for something funny, but for something interesting, which was them talking about U.S. hurricane evacuation routes, which, if you've never been to a Gulf Coast state, if you drive down the freeways in most Gulf Coast states near the Gulf Coast, you'll see these little symbols on the hard shoulder, which basically say, in the event of evacuation, this is a lane. Anyone who's driven in coastal Texas or Alabama or Mississippi or Florida will probably have seen those. Or Louisiana. 5 Gulf Coast states. So I thought that was interesting, and being someone who's from Texas, something I knew about. And then the best part of the episode, in my opinion, which is Gary trying to explain this hurricane thing, which I believe Tom had asked what it measures, or how it measures what a hurricane was. I don't know what it was, but he's describing it as, it's windy. It's so windy, shed fly. And that continued for a little bit. There's all sorts of variations on that. I thought it was really funny. And then, of course, the standard, we still haven't got an intro, which they do every episode, I believe. Maybe except one. It's kind of their outro. Their outro is their lack of outro, and I think that's funny. But that brings us to the end of Two of These People Are Lying, at least as far as we stand here on 10th of June of 2020. But hopefully we'll be seeing more in the future, and there will, of course, be a recap episode, super brief, in about an hour. So look forward to that.